I'm Sarah Nagel, and I've spent my career leading research and product development within some of the world's largest brands.
And I'm Chad Reynolds. I'm a serial entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Verve.
And this is AI Powered by People.
Each episode will dive into the latest AI developments and talk to an industry leader to help you better understand and utilize AI.
We'll take you inside some of the world's most famous companies and share examples of how AI is improving innovation, consumer engagement, media, and marketing.
No matter what industry you work in, we'll help you navigate one of the biggest disruptions to organizations and people today.
Hey, Chad, how's it going? What are you up to?
I'm good. What are you up to?
Busy week, but I think
Yeah?
you've got a busier week going on than I do.
It's all good. Did you want to talk about Kurt Cobain and sad songs and
Sad Chad.
Yeah,
Maybe not this
so-
week.
No, for listeners, I always get made fun of because my favorite playlist on Spotify is Sad Hour, and the songs aren't necessarily sad. They're just like easy to listen to while you're working on a computer, drinking coffee, sitting in a coffee shop. So
It's just funny because the whole Spotify thing, my Spotify city, like they
Yeah,
told you in
yeah.
2023, my Spotify city was Burlington, Vermont, like everyone else on the planet, except for you, which is Provo, Utah, which must be one
Yeah.
of the saddest places.
Is it?
I mean, I don't know.
I have very eclectic music taste. It was. I think I
call you
followed it
sad
up.
Chad. I don't know if it's eclectic. It's just dreary.
Yeah, but it also goes with my Netflix viewing history.
God, I can't.
My wife always makes fun of like when she turns on Netflix and my recommendations are like all shows from Scandinavia with like a crime drama.
And it's
Very
raining.
gray. Yeah. I don't know what this says about me.
Well,
On that note,
on that note, coming up, we're going to be talking to Charles Irizarry, who's a serial entrepreneur, investor, venture builder, and principal and CEO of Brim and Company. And Brim and Company is a company where they are organization where they help build the tech in behind companies that are building the future. Before we chat with him, let's talk about what we're seeing in the headlines. So there's more layoffs happening. We've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks. Microsoft laying off 1,900 gaming employees, Twitch, we've heard about Discord, Unity, Riot Games, but then also in the retail space, REI layoffs, Levi Strauss, Macy's, Wayfair. What are you thinking about this? What do you think the cause is, Chad?
it's just going to continue to be a trend. Like literally every week, we're going to hear about these through the headlines. I think every company right now is reshuffling, reorganizing the priorities. So I think is it only I guess is the cause of this only like AI technology? No, it's kind of all of these things shifting all at the same time, of doing more with less, and then focusing in on creating content, commerce, products. It's you have to be so core to the team right now, and I think you're just going to continue to see this more and more and more as the year goes on.
Yeah, and I think you can also see companies being like, okay, we've been wanting to kind of, clean house, and this is our opportunity as well. You can always see that kind of happening with organizations. So I agree. We're going to continue to see more, and we'll report on that as we see it. Also related to that too, Walmart is closing down its in-house innovation incubator called Store Number 8. Definitely related to some, AI developments. I think it's, goes along with what you were just saying around organizations, just kind of consolidating, the work, and the people surrounding that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely reflects not only Walmart's shift for their overall innovation strategy, that the physical place doesn't necessarily have to be where innovation happens. I think we know that it's really a mindset and the freedom for teams to explore the future, and that doesn't necessarily have to happen in a workshop. It most
or within a group.
Yeah, and so I think there's just lots of different ways that you can innovate today, and I think you start to see organizations, in their structure are functioning more innovative, and a lot of the key leaders in those teams and in the business are investing in more innovative solutions. So I think you'll start to see kind of that trend continue this year, where it's kind of dedicated spaces for innovation may transition into different use cases for those spaces.
And I'm sure it will happen within other organizations, and we'll keep track of that. We're also seeing, we mentioned it last week, but there's that AI generated comedy special, featuring George Carlin. We just saw that his daughter is suing Dudesy, the company or the group that made the fake comedy special. And, I think that the big challenge she has, or the thing that, the basis of the lawsuit is really around marketing and using his name to market the special. So I don't know. What do you think about this, and what kind of impacts do you think it will have on future either comedy specials or using AI to generate content like this?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the reason we want to follow this as we go throughout the pod was it's kind of a quickly evolving scenario or experience where you're seeing how people are marketing and using certain words, or using a person to kind of sell in the concept in a different way beyond training, kind of training the data off of material. So you're going to have that happening at OpenAI on some of the trade publications, suing on using our material to train, to create, generate new content. This is really explicit, where it's just around one person and then using that person to market it. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty interesting. So Carlin's attorney stated that this case isn't necessarily about AI, even though we want to talk about it here. It's really about that humans get to are using AI to violate the law and infringe on IP rights. And so Dudesy hasn't responded to this as of our taping, but it would be interesting to see some of the response. We've seen the response from OpenAI with their suits. So yeah, I don't know how this is going to play out, but
yeah, but it'll be really interesting to see, like how if she's successful, what will that mean? Also it kind of goes into the conversation we had the other day too. I'd love to get an IP lawyer on the pod just to get their perspective on a lot of this, type of generated content. So more to come there, and we'll see what happens. But other things that we're seeing in the headlines are the winner of the prestigious Japanese Literary Award has confirmed that there's AI help to write her book. The book was called The Tokyo Tower of Sympathy, and she
it sounds like a sad book. That's like a sad hour book.
I think you're gonna love it. It sounds rainy.
Yeah.
But she confirmed that 5% of her book was word for word generated by AI. And she was awarded for it. And she, she admitted that, part of the book was generated by AI.
Yeah, and I love the quote that the committee members who were reviewing the book, kind of quote was, the book was practically flawless. So I would say it worked, right? Like, I mean, we've all been using different tools, aids, bouncing ideas off of people. I don't know how this is necessarily any different, other than, it's helped to craft some of the words. So
she's making money off of it. I think that's where it is different. I mean, she's putting a book out there and profiting from it.
Right. So how is that different if you wrote something and then you had an editor, multiple editors that were crossing out your words, suggesting new ones, restructuring sentences, saying, "Hey, this character here works better. How is that any different?"
That's true. I mean, I hire them, and I pay $20 a month for chat. So I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I just think I think I look at, or I think about this, and I think about like students. I think about, how they're crafting their papers and things like that. Is that okay? I don't know. I think there's more to come here, but it's just really interesting to see that she was awarded, and she was open about it. And so I think it opens the door for more folks to use AI for content like this.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be open about it. I think that's where it gets deceptive if you're like, "Hey, I created this all on my own, and I had no help. I had no editors. I had no producers. It was just all me." And like we all know that's not necessarily the case. So just disclosing or sharing out, how you were, like, what was your process to go through, I think is admirable.
And so that is a great transition to our last, I don't know if I can call it a headline, but it was this article in Medium about the words that make it obvious that your text is written by AI. So this is just kind of like, let's just put it out there. These are some of the words. If you're crafting emails, crafting stuff, using these words, everyone's going to know you're using AI. So,
what are the words? What are the words?
yep. Transformative, foster or fostering, tapestry, like a tapestry of something.
Yep.
This is all about X. Think of blank as blank, like, or it's like this. And so example, it's like having a front row seat to the future of crypto, from your, from the comfort of
Mm-hmm.
your couch. Not only blank, but also. So e-commerce businesses leveraging pillar pages not only streamline user navigation, but also position themselves as industry leaders. And I see some of these words. I'm like, yeah, I've definitely sent emails out.
Yeah.
I've used some of these.
I'm going to start to use tapestry. I don't think I've ever used that one.
Oh, I've definitely. I mean, I get it. Where they're just like, oh, it's like the tapestry of something. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a way to describe. It's very poetic. But
Yeah.
so if you're using those words, we all know what you're up to.
I'm sure Gmail is going to work on a filter to rate kind of the authenticity or originality of your email, and
Sure.
I'm sure that's coming soon.
It'll be built into Grammarly.
Yeah, I mean, just to prioritize your inbox, so you already have those tabs across the top of like promotional, social, those types of things, and I would imagine you're going to use all this knowledge to then rank like how are these original emails that are authenticated to come, it's not spam. They're coming into your tab, and these are the things that you need to see. So I think that's like the future of all these things. That's really like what's happening, but it's good to have these words out in public of, just kind of just identifying them.
Yep. We know.
And they're good Scrabble words. Do people still play Scrabble?
I'm sure they play them on their phones.
All right, good.
Okay, now let's get to our interview with Charles Irizarry from Brim and Company. Chad, you know that Charles and I collaborated while I was at on the venture team at VF, and I've always loved how he's able to distill these technical principles that are hard to understand into concepts I can understand. Yeah, I mean, you guys are still going to nerd out about some stuff, but why are you excited to chat with Charles today?
Yeah, I think so. He's lived both on inside of companies, but also as an AI entrepreneur, and essentially vetting startups. So I think what's really interesting is to hear his perspective on AI that is differentiated in the market and what types of AI systems that enterprises should be looking at to tell kind of the fake ones from the real deal, hopefully in a language that you understand. So I'm really excited to go deep with him around that.
All right. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome, Charles, to the podcast. We're so glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Where are you calling in from today?
I am calling from Miami, Florida. Not Miami Beach. They're separate things. Miami proper.
Warmer than where we are.
Yeah. Well, Charles, I wanted to ask if you ever survived your was it Rust? The Rust survival game. And last time we chatted, you were like amped up for that weekend.
Yes, and we did not. So that was very tragic. A lot of time spent in building a very big base, and we got raided the next day by a group of 14-year-olds on Adderall, probably.
Oh wait, we gotta take a step back.
We probably get back up.
Yeah, what is
what's
Rust?
going on here?
Can we?
So Rust is a computer game. It's a very famous game, but it's on the older side. It's about 10 years old. And what's special about Rust is that it uses technology to kind of randomly generate an island, and it's different every time. And so the game functions on wipes. Wipes are basically 30-day periods in which you can do whatever you want on the island, build bases, houses, villages, whatever, attack people. And at the end of the month, it wipes everything from scratch, and then you get sent back to the beach. And so Wipe Day is a very special event because it's the start of the month. And so everyone starts or spawns on what we call a nude beach, meaning everyone's naked on the beach with only a torch and a rock. And you got to run inland and find hemp to make clothes. You got to cut wood, the whole 9 yards. And so about me and about, let's say, 6 other dads that in the IT world, but we play together. We were super excited because we got to jump on because the wipe was at like 10 in the morning while the kids were still at school. So we were like, okay, let's get ahead of the kids, so on and so forth. We built a massive base. It was just with like auto turrets and all kinds of stuff. And then we logged off. By the next morning, we had been raided. Some people blew a hole through the side of a base, took all our stuff and left. And we're like, you know what? We're done for wipe. So we're waiting for the next wipe now.
All right. We should get into that. We should learn more. I would love to participate.
Apparently don't start early. That's
yeah.
The early bird does not get the worm.
Yeah. Exactly. 14-year-olds will get you anyway.
It's a game that rewards people with more time. And so that's why we go for the beginning of the wipe, and then typically we'll stop playing. We won't play the full month because we'll just get outclassed by anyone that has extra time on their hands.
The wipe sounds like the purge. Like it has a very
basically.
Well, that's a great transition into your background.
Is it? Is it really?
I'm going to make it a great transition into your background. We'd love to hear about kind of what you, kind of your past and what led you to technology and kind of your interest in tech. And then also kind of what are you doing now? Because I know you're working on a lot of different things and you've got your hands on a lot of different businesses.
So I think it's actually, Sarah, a great transition because the way I got into tech was gaming ultimately. Around 10 years old, 12 years old, my father bought me a Nintendo and a PC, a computer, my first computer, Packard Bell with the turbo button. And so I was just enamored with the tech, usually just playing video games like Mouse Hunt or Ski Free. Kind of over time, I leveled up to just proper PC gaming in the late 90s. And in that time, games weren't as polished as they are today. You actually had to write a couple commands to run them. Depending on what kind of version of operating system you had to configure. So it got me into the world of development in Linux. And then that's when I really fell in love with Linux and building from there. And then we fast forward to when I graduated high school in 2005. Really, the way that I made money on the weekends was I would do gaming competitions. So I would play a game called Counter-Strike and then another one called Need for Speed, and basically play all night so that I was warmed up, so to speak, so that when I would go into the contest, I would win at least anywhere between third, second, or first prize, which was cash prizes. What really propelled me into the space was I wasn't doing too well in high school, and I decided to change that by writing a prog or a program that allowed me to keep track of my teacher's keystrokes so that I could access the online gradebook and change grades. And then fast forward, I eventually got caught. And instead of the principal expelling me, she put me on outdoor suspension and community service. And so for that summer, I was stuck at high school with not a soul in sight, fixing computers, managing the networks, implementing different tools to get ready for the new school year. And I really fell in love with kind of building stuff, building tech. Fast forward a little bit, started building startups when I didn't know what startups were. I sold my first company in late 2011 to Geico, which was a process to manage accidents and adjustments and how they get repaired at body shops, taking advantage of a lot of cool new technology at the time. So if anyone remembers the Motorola Razr flip phone, that's the phone that really brought out multimedia messaging, or MMS, so we could send pictures and videos to each other. So I took advantage of that and built an app around it. And then started a company called Rocker Labs, which later on we dropped the labs part. Rocker Labs was originally kind of like an innovation group where we were using emerging tech and applying it to business. But we found a real sweet spot in partnering up with entrepreneurs and building tech companies, high-scale tech companies in the full definition of a real startup, right? And then we went public in 2016, did little spits and spats of investments. Not all of them came true. One did really well for me, which was a company called Food Logic. We took it from seed all the way to Series B, and then just recently it got acquired. And what I'm doing now is a couple years back, I started another research lab called Brim Labs, and we were focusing on machine learning. This was around 2018. And it's really off the work that we did at Food Logic, which was a farm-to-fork traceability platform. So if you were eating at Chipotle, we knew where your lettuce came from, we know where your meat came from, we know where the beans came from and how it all came through the supply chain. But supply chains are complicated, and it's hard for humans to parse all of that information and try to figure out patterns or we would call like anomaly detection. So we would use machine learning to do that. And then that just put me down this little rabbit hole of, what else can machines do? And what can we teach the machines to do? And what can we automate? And how can we help scale ultimately? And originally, Brim was focused on computer vision and what we call reinforcement learning, which is effectively the way I describe it is just the technique of teaching a machine to teach itself. And then just about a year and a half ago, we transitioned from a research and labs company into an applied AI company. So we work with large enterprises and implementation of AI across their businesses and their processes to help scale. Ultimately, every business wants to either make more money or spend less money. And so we introduce machine learning to help them do that depending on the processes and opportunities there. And then we also run a little venture studio where when we see ideas that we really like and we really want to invest time and build out further, we'll spin them out as their own companies and license them out to our clients as well.
And then as part of that, I know the connection with you and Sarah was like through VF. I'm curious how, some of those deployments of how you're helping enterprises understand right. AI and how to take it across the whole stack.
That's a great point. Yeah, the way that Sarah and I met was through VF Corp. VF had started a kind of venture side of the business, corporate venture. And my name got introduced because of my experience with venture building in the past and kind of the IPO that we had with Rocker. And so I was asked to kind of come in and advise and help out. And so it was an interesting place to be because it was both corporate structures and processes from the VF side, but they were investing into startups. So I was also working with startups themselves who at this moment in time, which was 3 or 4 years ago, AI wasn't as popular as it is today. Now today, everyone wants it in like their coffee and in their cereal and so on and so forth. Back then, it was still a faraway concept for people. And so when I looked at a lot of the concepts that people were building, it was a fun time to explain to them the power of what machine learning can do for a lot of the services or processes that we're trying to build. VF was really ahead of its time. They did bring on someone that was head of machine learning and data science there, but it just didn't have the mainstream appeal that it has today. And so now it's a lot more fun, the projects that we're working on and what's being built in that respect. But back then and even now, it's still a lot of missionary work. It's easier now because people are genuinely interested on the topic. But back then it was like trying to preach, no one cared about machine learning. It sounded too complicated. Yeah, they weren't ready for it. There wasn't any demonstrable consumer-ready solutions that people can look at and be like, okay, that's a symbol of machine learning, like we have with ChatGPT. And so a lot of the time we were just building proof of concepts just to try to convince people that the potential's here, this is what we can do. And even at the face of really what I thought was really cool stuff, it was like, great, we'll think about it. But we were building, like, for example, in one use case, we were using computer vision to look at security cameras at an airport. And so we could tell you using AI, when someone gets on the curb of an airport, where they go throughout the entire complex to their gate, just using your security cameras. And just even if they go off camera and then come back on camera, with like as a researcher, it's like, this is a breakthrough, man. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But for most executives, it's how do I make money with this? And so I've had to rewire my brain to be less of an engineer and more of a business minded, like, this is the business use case. This is how you get the ROI. This is the implementation. And that's what really kind of moves the needle for people in terms of adoption.
And Sarah and I have been spending, a good part of the last maybe year meeting with brands, leaders, talking about AI use cases, and I'd say in very foundational terms, what these things are, how you can utilize them. But curious in some of the tool, you seem to have a pulse on some of the new things that are coming. Are there some interesting things that you're excited about?
Absolutely. Where we're spending a lot of our time, because at the end, we're still a research lab. The reason why we call ourselves Brim is because we're always on the brim of innovation. And so we have two brilliant engineers, both graduated from Cornell, and they're completely focused on two areas. One is reinforcement learning, which is more and more getting understood and sought after. And why that's important is because we use reinforcement learning on applications around dynamic pricing. The world is only getting more digital. There's much more variability in consumer behaviors and trends. And a lot of the time, vendors or people that sell CPG goods are not necessarily selling from their own branded website. They are typically in marketplaces. Those marketplaces, all they have to worry about is the way the pictures, the description, and the price. And price is the biggest thing that makes the difference between I buy your product or the next product. So engines that are able to basically on their own figure out the appetite of the market and dynamically price it the right way, kind of like how Uber does surge pricing when at the end of an event. But imagine that for products. And so, and especially it gets harder with products that have expiration dates. So an example of that is hotel reservations, as an example. If I don't rent out this room by a certain time, it's now worth nothing to me. I can't monetize this product night. So reinforcement learning is an exciting area that we're really spending a lot of time on. And then the other area, which leads into kind of what's happening right now, is everyone's talking a lot about ChatGPT, Midjourney, this kind of generative type of what they call generative AI. And so a lot of it is centered around how good of a prompt or a request you can make to the model in terms of what it gets back to you. And so when you're talking about an individual person, that's typically a very straightforward thing. It's you sit there, you just write the best prompt you can, what they call prompt engineering effectively, and then you keep tweaking it to get better outputs. That doesn't scale, especially when you're looking at a large organization. And so the area that we're focusing around is it's a research area called context architecture. So it's how do we dynamically tap into all the data systems into an organization and then reorganize that information so that it's in context and then make that context available to the AI to make better decisions at scale is kind of the strategy that we invoke. And so a lot of our work is really just developing techniques and solutions around that. One thing that we've built, which is one of the products that we spun out in our venture studio, is called Strata.ai. And it allows us to basically drop an AI model into your inbox, and then it parses all your emails to understand how your business works. So it figures out who are the people, who are the projects, what's the work you have to do, your processes. It generates a visual so that you understand what it's trying to accomplish. And then it does a couple things for you. One, it tries to report on your performance. Like, this is how long you guys take on this process, and this is where potential bottlenecks exist. And then when it comes to generative work, it's like, now that I have context, now that I know the conversations you had with your customers, now I know what you guys are trying to accomplish from a sales perspective, I can generate a better sales proposal for you because I'm in context. You don't have to write it anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's a new, I think prompt engineering as a role is at an end. It's a task you will do in what I think it's going to be called context design. Ultimately, that's like the new kind of UI UX area.
Can we take a little step back? I'm just thinking, with our audience, they may have some questions about some of the stuff that you were just talking about.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
He just started on the beach and just ran inland as fast as possible. Sarah's bringing you back to blow a hole in the side of your fort.
So how do you explain kind of those ideas of of AI, kind of the basics of AI? How do you explain that to maybe potential new clients or my mom? So how would you do that?
Is she a buyer? Sure. First off, we'll
see if we can get her as a client. She's a teacher.
It's funny, even as popular as AI is, there is a lot of hesitation to buy anything, really. That's with buyers, and that's even with investors. Typically, our approach is we kind of do like a master class of what AI is and what does it mean. And there's two ways that I kind of position it in the mind of leaders, business leaders. It's one, if you look historically, we are considered to be in the fourth industrial revolution, where digital is effectively eating the world. And in that respect, AI is very important because it's taking that data effectively and actually interpreting it at scale in which a human couldn't do. When I make that point and I get the confused faces, I say, look, the way to think about AI is it's the science of teaching a machine to think and reason like a human. And so this helps you figure out what tasks you can give to a model or a machine learning model versus you should do yourself. The other aspect that I tell people is AI is not a tool that's going to replace anyone in specific. It's going to elevate you. Effectively, it's gonna, in my philosophy, it's going to elevate humanity. But the way that I position it is, if you do something that is repetitive but also cognitive, like you have to think through it. So think about like head of sales who has to build a sales forecast for the next quarter, maybe the next 2 quarters. That takes time and effort. You got to talk to people. You have to look at your Salesforce dashboard and data. You have to look at your process to make sure your process is right. There's a lot of factors that you have to think about, bring that together so that you can make a forecast. That effort to figure out all that information, bring it in together into your head so that then you can make a forecast, that is what we call context. You're generating the context that you need to then generate your forecast. The way that AI models work today is that by themselves, they can help you create that forecast. You can go to ChatGPT right now, type in, give me a sales forecast if I was selling dog treats in, I don't know, whatever market I choose. And it'll give you a rough and dirty thing. It's probably not going to be accurate. It's probably not going to be structured well, but it's going to give you something pretty good. And so what you want to do is increase the quality of your context into that request so that it gives you a better output. And so you are responsible for generating that context. The models are able to just do what a human can do at scale, but it can't figure out what to do unless the human's there to guide it on that. And so depending on what the use cases are, sometimes there's plenty of models in place that you can just pick off the shelf and use for. Like, so for example, sales forecasting, that's been solved 100 times over. There's something for that. ChatGPT, which is it's a large language model and transformer. ChatGPT is fantastic. You could use that to generate reports, content, ideas, so on and so forth. But it's only as good as what you put into it. And so really kind of describing the whole concept of context, modeling, and then obviously what we as researchers refer to as inference. But the output of these models, the results, is you want to increase the quality of those results based off of your context in that respect. So I structure into those 3 kind of buckets. So now it's in everyone's heads, and then we go to their business and say, okay, now let's look at your business, and your business is made up of processes. Let's look at your processes, and then let's look in your processes and figure out what areas could be optimized with AI. And usually the easiest places to go is any point in your process that requires a decision. If it requires a decision, how long does it take? And if this decision was faster, how valuable would that be for your business? So if you had someone, the head of manufacturing at your local plant in Cincinnati, for example, and that person can make better decisions about their throughput for the day, ultimately increasing the productivity of that factory, you would probably want to invest into AI to help that person do a better job. What ends up happening is that that person doesn't get replaced. They become what I call a super editor. The machine learning is doing all the work, getting all the context together, preparing all the inferences, pumping out recommendations. That supervisor is really picking the right path and doing what they were supposed to do, really lead the company from a success perspective. So we tell people AI doesn't stand for artificial intelligence. It stands for augmented intelligence. We're augmenting the human. We're making them way more productive than they ever were before.
So beyond kind of like people believing that AI is going to take their job, are there any other misconceptions about AI that you have to address with your clients?
The I don't want to say annoying, but the one that comes enough where I have to giggle and like, okay, let's start this conversation is when AI has sentience or feelings. And a lot of times customers will show us like the conversations they have with ChatGPT and be like, see it, like it knows, it feels. And really what I have to explain is at the end of the day, this is just a program. It's effectively a very dynamic algorithm that was been written. And what it's trying to do is trying to predict the next letter or word in the thing that it's producing. And so when you ask it something, it doesn't read it contextually in the way that humans read it. It looks at it, turns that into a matrices of numbers, and it tries to pattern, recognize, and match that to other patterns it's seen in the vast terabytes of data that it's processed already. And then based off of those patterns, it predicts what patterns needs to be generated to be given back to you, which then gets interpolated into text and which is read out to say, I love you too, Jonathan, or whatever the conversation you had, but it's just a prediction ultimately. So when you look at these models, you have to understand that these are just programs. These are a bunch of random generated numbers in prediction that tell you that come up with the next letter or the next phrase. And what OpenAI has accomplished as an example, which is the parent company of ChatGPT, is that they've just come up with the best version to date on that. No one was paying attention to this work 3 to 4 years ago when it was at a third grade reading level, and very bad rationale. OpenAI did a fantastic job for the industry in terms of breaking past some barriers in the technology and really opening it up for the consumer market to really understand and take advantage, which has introduced lots of funding, lots of opportunities, lots of further research and development. But that's typically the kind of annoying thing I have to grapple with some folks when they wonder about AI and its emotions.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of movies out there that probably scare people.
Of course, naturally.
Yeah.
So Charles, if you kind of take yourself outside of that corporate world,
Yeah,
and into the startup world, right? So as a tech entrepreneur, pitching VCs on even like our own platform, right?
Yeah.
Like how AI is shaping, changing, not only capital of like how companies are raising capital,
right.
but also how entrepreneurs now are starting businesses kind of on the backs of some of the new AI tech. So
Yeah.
I'd love your perspective on that landscape and how it's changing.
Well, I think it would help so that you can understand my reasoning, to introduce kind of context about like the last kind of tech cycle and bubble, which was like crypto, blockchain, NFTs, so on and have you. And I think a lot of people lost their pants on that one in terms of big bets and investments. And so as that entire space is going into a winter, and just out of context, AI has been in 2 major winters already. So we're here enjoying a nice summer, but we're going to probably hit a plateau on this tech. It's not like Skynet ready type of tech, but it's good enough, and it's going to plateau in terms of regular innovation, just like many other things did, like cloud and other kind of critical tools that the world uses beyond business. I think one of the things that I have combated, and some of the founders I'm advising are dealing with, is that there is a little bit of fatigue of terms of just generally investing into hype tech. And so that's happening with AI specifically. A lot of investors are super excited about AI. They want to invest into it, sure. But they're worried about if it's the right bet to make on this startup versus another startup. And they're kind of popping up all over the place. And last cycle, you had people just renaming their companies to blockchain. Like, it was just very hard to sort through the noise and really get the signals out of it. So there's a little bit of that happening today, unfortunately. There is a lot of ideas that are being masqueraded as original AI solutions when they're just kind of like a repurposing of ChatGPT in different ways. And so there's a lot of fear in that regard. And there's a lot of investors that are already getting burnt in that sense. And so when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who are genuinely trying to provide value, but also the way that investors look at value is, what's your intellectual property, what's defensible, what moat do you have, so on and so forth. There is probably a misunderstanding from the investment community that you have to own your own models, or if you're building it on someone else's model, then you have no real intellectual property, which is actually not true at all. The real gold rush here is the data and who controls that data and who has access to that data. Because that's how you're going to build the best possible context that then generates the best output out of that model. It doesn't matter if OpenAI has the best language model on the market today. If they don't have the data that I have captured with my clients, that's within my walled garden, you're not going to come up with any good ideas or inferences like I can, ultimately. And so, and it's very easy now in the market where you can actually roll your own models now. So it's not like you're completely dependent on one tool or the other. And so that's a lot of training and education I give both to investors and to founders in this respect. Don't focus so much on the models. It's important. That's an aspect. It's like picking the right, software hosting provider. It's like you can pick AWS to make your API gateway. That's just an implementation thing. But in terms of generating value for your business, what you're worried about, what you want to be concerned about is data and treating it like an asset. Like, what do I have? How much of it do I have? And how much does it help me provide value from a startup perspective? And so companies that are following that track, they're going to be fine. you're going to have a good time in this environment. Otherwise, they're not. You're going to get found out.
Yeah, I mean that's what we, I guess, kind of navigating the last year, going through that. You're sitting right next to kind of AI wrapper companies where
Exactly.
just kind of wrap their UI around an LLM. Whereas we were collecting just a ton of consumer videos and data, and no one else has that.
Exactly.
And then you have extreme context to build out some really interesting outputs that, again, no one else could create from. So what, I guess, for just even like the startups that are entering, like what do you typically see as being the standout thing? Is it purely data? Is it a way that it's also getting applied, or some of the outputs from it that are unique?
I think we're still very much so. A couple years ago, the what I used to tell investors is the AI space is about the best use cases. Like, which use cases can you find where you can generate the most value, both as to your end user, but as a business to your shareholders as well. I think that's still largely true. So I think we're still living in a very rich target environment that isn't saturated yet. Like, everyone's trying to build something with AI, but they haven't. There's a lot of like me too's and copy paste, or what I call copy pastas, around of the same kind of concept, just maybe changing it for different industries. So I'm seeing a lot of like AI generated websites, 30 seconds you have your website, but now it's being applied to industry. So like they're doing it now for trainers and coaches, and like there's just people are trying to gobble up a very high competition area, and no one's really thinking through real problem use cases. I think we're gonna see more better use case implementation and ideas over the next year or two. That's the one area that's going to enter. The next area is the data. Who has the most valuable data? And so I think what we're going to see is you're going to see a big data kind of, for lack of a better term, like a data economy emerge, where instead of paying each other for things, people are going to be bartering in data sets. For many different reasons. One, to supplement my data set so I can do richer services, or two, I need your data just to train my model so it's better, and then I have a better model that does this thing, right? And so there's going to be that. And I think the next one, which we are just scratching the surface on, but I think it's going to be great, is true valuable use cases that I have seen now they are going to be serviced with more than one model. A model will serve a purpose. So, for example, even what you guys are doing, you're going to have large language, computer vision, a couple of other models working in what I call orchestration together,
Right. Yep.
to come out with something very, very valuable that no amateur developer can put together. No regular consumer will even like understand how to produce, but it will provide significant value to get to a decision, or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So in Strata, the Strata AI, the tool that we talked about, we use OpenAI just to do basic entity extraction, like what's a person and a place. But OpenAI, or rather ChatGPT, has its limitations. It's not the best at certain things. So we have to use other models to do sentiment analysis. We have to use other models to do relationship dynamics, to understand how people work together. We need to use other models to do action item extraction. So it's a real ensemble of different models parsing the same data set for different perspectives and insights, then bringing that together in a unified user experience that a regular person can say, okay, this is perfect. It feels like I just hired like 4 executive assistants to go out there and get all this ready for me the way I want it, and it's ready.
Yeah,
and so
that's exactly what we're doing. So like we're I think we have probably 16 different models deployed, and then have been building personas that are orchestrating. It's just like in real life, like somebody has a part of the problem or part of the part of the answer, but they're approaching it in completely different ways, but using the same data set. And so stringing those all together and generating different outputs along the way is super unique compared to just going into one. You're going into ChatGPT and you're using just that model. So
and depending on the version too,
right.
This is where I think the future really is in the next few years. It's the way that deep learning was discovered was we wanted to figure out how the brain worked. So instead of just having just a singular machine learning model with not too many nodes inside its network, we expanded that to hundreds, thousands, millions neural network nodes working together for calculations. We're going to do the same thing, but with models instead. So you're going to have hundreds, thousands, millions of models working in orchestration to come out with an output to come. And I think that's how we get to artificial general intelligence.
Right. Yep.
That envelope of processing and context and thinking is what's really going to unlock the next stage.
What is artificial general intelligence for our audience? Can you explain that?
So there's three recognized maturity levels when it comes to AI. There's artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and artificial super intelligence. Where we live today is artificial narrow intelligence, meaning every AI model that we have or every model we have can do one task, and that's about it. Artificial general intelligence, we don't have. It doesn't exist currently today. That's OpenAI's pursuit. A lot of other research firms and companies are pursuing artificial general intelligence. And artificial general intelligence is measured in it's an AI that can do something as good as the average human. So can do a variety of tasks, can understand contextually a lot of different things, can manage a small aspect of a business by itself, relatively autonomously. Artificial superintelligence is measured in it's an AI that's better than the best people of any field. So the top minds of a particular science or industry, the superintelligence will be better at. And so looking at those like three levels, we're currently in narrow intelligence or artificial narrow intelligence, and we're actively researching and pursuing artificial general intelligence.
Okay. It seems, I mean, it's crazy. And it's exciting to hear, now that we're in the summer, although there may be a winter, it sounds, coming. What advice do you give to young entrepreneurs or your clients to prepare themselves for this future?
Well, for young entrepreneurs, this is just how the future is going to work, in the same way that cloud was a generational thing, search was a generational thing. This is a core aspect of any business you build, but it's just a tool. And so you really need to focus on providing value as a business. That's ultimately what the game has always been for the world of commerce for the last 3,000 or 5,000 years that humans have existed. It's always the same thing. I provide value, you pay me for that value, I run a business doing this. And so AI is just a component of many different tools that you will use, and it'll help you achieve those things. If you're an entrepreneur, a tech founder now who wants actionable advice now, it's really chasing down the best possible unique use cases and where you can apply AI to provide value to your customers. And a lot of it is around older businesses not sure how to adopt this stuff, and they need really packaged stuff so that they can take advantage of its value. That's really where the quick return on time and effort can be. For my clients, if you don't adopt AI, you're just going to watch your competitors do it. And that's the difference. You're going to have, you probably have a great business, well-oiled process, but someone else that is using AI to scale their team and their processes faster than you can keep up is going to beat you ultimately. And so even now with, I think there's going to be two major categories that AI is really going to benefit. It's going to be small businesses and large enterprises. Everyone in the middle is just trying to become a large enterprise. But the large enterprises that are very, very established, that have their market makers, they really dominate industries, are the ones that are going to take the most advantage of this. And then the small businesses are the ones using it because they have nothing. They have no technical debt. They can move very nimble. They can adopt very emerging tech very quickly. Typically, they're very hungry entrepreneurs, so they'll take that and apply it. Are going to also see dramatic growth that we've never seen before. There's a paper I'll send to you guys that talks about how we're starting to enter the age of the solopreneur who's making about $500,000 a year, if not higher, just because they figured out business, service, and process, and they use AI to help scale them out, where they don't have to hire employees because it's just them at scale. And so that's why we're really excited about this concept of augmented intelligence.
All right. So that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining. This is a really fun conversation. Can't wait for the next time for It's Like Sarah and the beard conversation.
Yeah. For those who are listening along, Sarah's surrounded by beards on both sides. I just need an invite to this dad Russ community. I don't know if I want to start out naked on a beach though, but at least I have a rock. At least I have a rock.
Charles, where can listeners find out more about you or what you're up to?
Sure. So our website is brim.company is also the name of the company. And soon we're going to be releasing kind of a Medium blog where we're kind of sharing kind of our insights, our learnings, kind of the research that we're doing. Um, the AI is still in its infancy. People think that this is something saturated or there's a lot. No, we're barely scratching the surface. We need help on different projects and ideas. We're always looking to hire bright minds to help us kind of solve complex things. So you can really just hit our website up. We should be launching a new version very shortly, and then it's going to have all the links. And then from there, you can find us both there and LinkedIn as well.
Awesome.
Thanks, Charles. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate
it.
Good
to talk to you.
Likewise.
All right. That was a super fun conversation with Charles. I think he's such a lovely human being.
His beard is on point, too. His beard is on point.
Well, you're just saying that. What were some of your takeaways from that conversation?
I mean, it's always interesting to hear someone from both sides of the kind of corporate venture side of technologies they're filtering through to see kind of what's what and then how to implement those. But also, as an entrepreneur, starting your own kind of AI company and what goes into that. I think some of the advances of kind of the first gen AI platforms that were really just focus on LLM and kind of chatting with the things and you're getting different outputs to some of the things that I know you and I've been kind of really deep in on more of the orchestration of just where this world is going it's just exciting to hear others talk about it in that way. What about you?
A couple things. I think, the approach that it was just interesting to hear like other companies and kind of how they're approaching AI about with Brim and Company and how they're kind of implementing AI into the workflow to better understand how people interact, how they communicate, how they work. And, there's a lot of really interesting ways that information can be used. And, I go to management consulting, like how could you, if you understand kind of all the intricacies of like how people communicate and how they work together, how they talk, you can essentially help companies restructure in kind of a more effective way. So I think they've got some really cool ways to be able to, an approach to work with companies there.
Yeah.
I also thought it was kind of, that he doesn't believe that AI is going to replace anyone. It's not, it's just going to elevate kind of what you do. People need to be part of this process, when basically to like help ensure really great outputs. And, the way that he framed it as augmented intelligence, I think is cool versus artificial intelligence being it's augmenting you as a human being.
Yeah, I mean, a good activity really cool to do, and maybe this is for listeners, is, if you've ever sketched out a customer journey map of just like, here's the starting point, you kind of go through these different phases and activities, as you go on and on, you're sketching out, kind of what are you doing, what are you thinking about while you're doing it, and how's that feel? And then you're finding those pain points to kind of innovate around. Mm-hmm. I would say with AI, it's not necessarily anything different. It's, what are the tasks that you're doing, on a hourly, daily, weekly, yearly cadence. How painful are those? Mm-hmm. And then how could you incorporate AI to actually help you as a companion in that experience? And like we've all been there of like preparing reports or analyzing tons of data, and you're reserving an entire week, to do these things or building out super elaborate PowerPoints. AI can help augment that or elevate what you can do. So it's less about like formatting and spending your time there. It's more about the kind of strategic part of what you can do with these insights. And I think, more than ever, you can now see the full playing field and not have to live in the weeds so much, where you don't have time left, cognitive time to think about how to innovate it. So
yeah, you're only living in the weeds when you're playing Rust and you're naked in the weeds.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I got to get on that game. It sounds. I guess it's an older game, right? It's not.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, I think it's an older
I'm sure
game.
It like came out like when Lost came out. So
it sounds like it. There's polar bears chasing after you while you're trying to.
It's real life.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of AI Powered by People. This show is produced by Steve Berkowitz and brought to you by Verve. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday.
See you next time.